Period 3. The Iroquois Confederation, the most powerful Indian group during the time period, consisted of 5 Indian nations, maintained a defensive relationship by keeping a distant relationship among the British and French, traded with both British and French, and played the two against each other. It controlled the Great Lakes region. The French and Indian War. It was from 1754 to 1763. It was also known as the 7 Years' War. Britain and France fought over land in North America. The war stemmed from previous European conflict. Much of the conflict arose over control of the Ohio River Valley and forts along the river. The effects of the French and Indian War. It expanded horizons of colonists. It created trained officers and corps that knew British vulnerabilities. British felt colonists were ungrateful and not willing to share the burden. Colonists saw themselves as junior partners to the British. Pontiac's Rebellion. Chief Joseph gathered Native Americans to capture British posts during the French and Indian War. This weakened the Indian alliance and allowed the British to win the war. The British and Indians came to a peace and agreement, but the British gained control over the land. The American Revolution. The long-term causes. The results of the French and Indian War, enforcement of mercantilism, the Albany Plan of Union, self-government, and the Great Awakening. The American Revolution. The short-term causes. Proclamation of 1763. Great Britain would not allow settlers to move past a line drawn down the Appalachian Mountains, although it was not able to be enforced. The Sugar Act taxed 3 pence per gallon of molasses and new taxes on sugar imports. The American Revolution. The short-term causes. The Currency Act prohibited the issue of new bills of credit as well as the reissue of old currency. British merchants did not want to use colonial money. The Stamp Act, tax on paper materials from Britain, not approved by the colonies. The American Revolution. Short-term causes. The Quartering Act required colonists to provide food and shelter to British soldiers during times of war. The Declaratory Act. The repeal of the Stamp Act. The Boston Massacre. A group of British soldiers fired shots and killed 5 angered colonists. The Albany Plan of Union. 7 colonies met in Albany, New York, to plan for defense against the French. The Albany Plan of Union created a Grand Council that represented all colonial assemblies and a president appointed by the King of England who would decide on military and tax issues if needed. The battles of the American Revolution. Lexington and Concord. A shot heard round the world. First shots fired in the Revolutionary War. Saratoga. Major battle that was a turning point in the U.S. winning the war. Treaty of Alliance. 1778. Defensive alliance between the U.S. and France in case Britain attacked the U.S. Yorktown. Last major battle of the Revolutionary War. The Articles of Confederation. The Continental Congress adopted the AOC as the first constitution for the United States. It has strengths such as keeping diplomacy, some sort of domestic policy, and power to direct the American Revolutionary War. However, its weakness was that the state government had more power than the federal government, creating division between states. Shays' Rebellion. It was an uprising in Massachusetts to reform the state government, caused by economic policy, aggressive tax and debt collection, also political corruption. The Constitutional Convention. These conventions were used to discuss the problems going on throughout the country. The Founding Fathers met at a secret convention to discuss the possibility of creating a new form of government that improves upon the Articles of Confederation, like balance of power among other things. A new constitution was formed and replaced the AOC in March of 1789. The Federalist Papers. They were articles written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. It was used to persuade voters to adopt a new constitution. Federalists wanted the new Constitution to be passed because it sets a more even government and also a stronger federal government. Anti-federalists like the AOC and wanted the states to have more power and be stronger. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution. They guarantee many personal freedoms. George Washington, first U.S. President, 1789 to 1797, involved in the Whiskey Rebellion and the first farewell address. The Whiskey Rebellion, protest against excess tax on alcohol under Washington's presidency, started by farmers who sold their grain to be made into whiskey. Farewell address. Washington warned against political parties in his farewell address and wanted the United States to stay neutral. John Adams, the second U.S. President, 1796 to 1801. He was a Federalist. Vice President under George Washington in 1789. He is involved in the XYZ affair. France and England began to seize American ships and starts an unofficial war between France and America. Quasi-war. Congress cut off all trade with France because of the XYZ affair. The Navy was created. The Convention of 1800 ended France's peacetime military alliance with the U.S. Napoleon wanted to conquer parts of the New World. The Alien and Sedition Acts. Alien made it difficult for immigrants to gain citizenship to the United States and gave President Adams more power among aliens. Sedition made it illegal for government to prosecute citizens who spoke against government actions. The Judiciary Act 1789. The Judiciary Act of 1789 organized the Supreme Court. This included 5 justices and 1 Chief Justice, and many federal district and circuit courts. The XYZ affair. France and England started to seize ships, which causes an undeclared war with the United States. Delegates were sent to France to resolve conflict, but the French instead tried to bribe the delegates. This angered Americans. Jay's Treaty. This was a treaty which angered Americans. It was able to get Britain to say they would pay damages for recent seizures of American ships. The British did not agree to leave American ships alone in the future, and they decided that the Americans still owed British merchants for pre-Revolutionary War debts. In all, this treaty was a complete failure by John Jay. Alexander Hamilton. He was the founder of the United States financial system. He was the leader of the Federalist Party, Secretary of Treasury, leader of economic policies in the George Washington administration. Establishment of the National Bank. In the establishment of the National Bank, a system of tariffs was created and a friendly trading system with Britain was established. He was also involved in the American Revolution and the XYZ affair. Federalists versus Democratic Republicans. Federalists. Leader Alexander Hamilton thought rich, well-educated should run the country. Encouragement of trade, favored a strong federal government, powerful central bank, loose interpretation of the Constitution, pro-British, and Republican. Democratic Republicans. The leader was Thomas Jefferson. People in general should be able to run the government. Strict interpretation of the Constitution. Pro-French. Encouragement of state banks. Weak federal government to conserve state rights. Encouraged farming. Democrat.